victims of human rights violation. Next to him, you have Mr. Sirif Kijera, who is also a board member and the chair of the board of directors of the Victim Center. I am Mr. Adam Ajalo. I am the national coordinator of the Victim Center. And Binta Baji, of course, is the admin and finance of the Victim Center. And then we have two representatives of the victim. You have Honorable Kemesen Jame. I think all of you know him. And then you have Mr. Bojang, who is also a victim. So without taking much of your time, we know you are also very busy and you have a busy schedule today. You've been called upon because of one reason or the other. And the main reason why we call the press, and we are very happy that we have quite a number of the press also here, and we want to thank you for that. Our main reason for being here today is on two folds. One of them is the reason why Adama Barrow, His Excellency Adama Barrow, nominated two individuals to be the speaker and also the deputy speaker. Babakary Tombong Jatta, who most of you have known, was one time working with the former dictator Yaya Jammeh, and he is now brought back as the speaker. And of course, Sidi Njai, we all know what he has did in past. He was also a minister briefly during the Yaya Jammeh era. He is also brought back as the deputy speaker of the National Assembly. Yes, of course, it's a concern for the victims. Why is it a concern? Because we are very, very worried that perhaps the TRRC report and recommendation that is currently on the table of the president, whether they are going to issue a very comprehensive white paper that would satisfy the victims. So that is why we are worried. Worried because in the sense that Babakary, all of you, some of the journalists have interviewed him recently, and he said he has always kicked against the TRRC report. We know when the TRRC was in progress, he said he is not in agreement with the TRRC, and he still have the belief that Yaya Jammeh did not cause any atrocities. So that is worrying, because if you have that kind of a person whose mind set on that in terms of still supporting Yaya Jammeh, and you bring him back as a speaker, he would not support anything that would have to go against Yaya Jammeh, especially when it comes to the TRRC recommendation. Of course, CD also played a crucial role during the 2016 election, and that was what has led to the impasse. So these are the reasons why we have called you as journalists and also as representatives of different CSOs and also victims, so that we can hear the chairman of the board of directors to read a letter which was written to the head of state to inform him of our dismay, our dissatisfaction and concerns. So perhaps before I waste most of the time, I would want to call Mr. Sirif to read the letter that was addressed to the head of state. So,
thank you, Adama. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the Board of Directors of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violation. I'm the National Coordinator and the staff at the Secretariat of the Victim Center. Honorable Kemese Jame, who is also a victim, he is here with us. You have Mr. Abdullah Bojang, who is also a victim, and he is also here with us. You have Ida Marita Eke, who has been quite a generous philanthropist and has been supporting the Victim Center, is also here with us. And then Madi Jobate also is here with us, a leading human rights activist in this country. And you have Mr. Yusuf Taylor. He is from Team Gom Sabopa. He is also here with us to show solidarity with the victims. I have a statement that I'm going to read. That is the letter that the Victim Center sent to His Excellency, the President of the Republic. And here I read. The letter is addressed to His Excellency Adam Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia. Your Excellency, letter to the President of the Republic of the Gambia on the nomination of Fabakary Tombong Jatta as Speaker and Sidi Eskenjai as Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Mr. President, it is with deep shock and a painful feeling of betrayal that the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, known as the Victim Center, came to learn of your nomination of Fabakary Tombong Jatta and Sidi Eskenjai as members of the National Assembly. Even worse is to realize that you have identified them to be the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, which came to pass on the first day of sitting of the 6th Legislature on 14th April 2022. We are hugely concerned with your nomination of these two individuals, as they do not only represent the brutal dictatorship the country endured for 22 years, but they were also key pillars of the power behind the tyranny of former President Yahya Jammeh. Since 1997, Fabakary was a member of the National Assembly until 2017, half of which period he served as the majority in strengthening dictatorship as lawmakers who failed to provide constitutional oversight as well as legal reforms necessary to prevent, end, and hold accountable perpetrators of human rights violations under the APRC regime. Rather, they deliberately and actively reneged on constitutional duties of holding the executive accountable, but instead decide to aid and abet tyranny which had consumed the life of scores of Gambians, including your own colleagues, while you were part of the opposition. In essence, Fabakary and Sidinjai provided to Jammeh in the legislature what the junglers did for him in the security sector. Mr. President, the day Fabakary and Sidi were installed as the National Assembly leaders, it coincided with the 6th anniversary of the murder of your former political ally, Solo Sandeng. Your election on 1st December 2016 was a direct offshoot of the protest that Solo and your compatriots led at Westfield, for which they were brutally crushed, so much so that Solo and several others never lived to enjoy the freedom you and the rest of fellow Gambians celebrate today. Hence, the nomination and election of Fabakary and Sidi as Speaker and Deputy Speaker, respectively, is a moral indictment of your leadership and a manifestation of gross betrayal of the Gambian nation, and in particular, your very allies. Solo Sandeng, Solo Kuruma, Ibrahim Sise, Langmarong, Lamin Dambudiba, who died, and many others who continue to live in terrible pain and misery today due to torture. In this April, we recall in 2000, when Jammeh ordered the massacre of Gambian children. These crimes, among many, all constitute the unaccountable instances in which Fabakary and Sidinjai should have stood up as lawmakers to check the executive at the time, but failed to do so. Their failure, together with their colleagues, was the fundamental reasons that violations of human rights became the order of the day in the Gambia. Hence, to bring back these two individuals into the People's House and at the highest level indicates your lack of political will to ensure justice for victims and your deliberate attempt to bring back dictatorship. This is because it is obvious from their track record that Fabakary and Sidi will never ever hold you also as president accountable should you decide to also disregard the Constitution and flout the rule of law and violate the rights of Gambians with impunity as Yahya Jammeh did. In essence, Mr. President, by nominating these individuals in the People's House indicates your total rejection of the never again mantra and dishonoring the lives of your fallen colleagues and trampling upon the dignity of Gambians as a whole. Mr. President, the victims' community is hugely concerned and worried by your decision, not only because Fabakary and Sidi were foremost in rejecting your election, hence the verdict of the people in support of Jammeh in 2016, but as he sat in the chair of the Speaker on the very day of assuming that high office, Fabakary Tombong Jatta remains unrepentant, unapologetic, and antagonistic as he expressed his total support for Jammeh. He demonstrated his total disregard for accountability and national unity as he demands the unconditional return of Yahya Jammeh. He went further to tell the world that he is willing and ever ready to reject the draft Constitution 2020 once again. In his entire interview with the media, Fabakary did not even spare a second to mention the atrocities of the past or show any form of remorse, care, and concern for the victims. While we express our concern and disappointment with your decision, we are, however, not surprised. Since assuming office in January 2017, the victims' community has always found it difficult to receive your attention and sympathy. It is only once that they visited you at State House in 2018. As we live with that feeling of neglect by you, we watch with even bitter shock how you went further to forge an alliance with the APRC. Not only did you refuse to disclose the terms of that alliance to the public, but you also went further to visit Jammeh's family home in Kanilai. What we could deduce, therefore, is that you abandoned victims and embraced perpetrators when it was those victims that gave you the presidency. Hence, the nomination of Fabakary and Sidi is part of a consistent pattern of your lack of political will and commitment to transitional justice and care for victims. Mr. President, in your heart of hearts, do you truly believe your decision to nominate these two individuals is in the best interest of the Gambia? Are you willing and bold enough to invite the mothers of the victims of April 10 and 11, or the children of Vera Haidar, Haruna Jammeh, Solo Sandeng, and the families of Ibu Job and Mahmoud Sise, among other victims, to face them to justify this decision? Have you taken time to reflect on why and how you became president of the Gambia? Did you forget the past from which the Gambia came, and what were the aspirations of the people as they voted for you? In your 2016 manifesto, you promised to ensure transitional justice and accountability for the violations of the past. How do you reconcile that agenda with the nomination of Fabakary and Sidi today as leaders of the highest organ of the state? We may not be able to remove this individual from this noble house, but rest assured that the most Gambians hold that Fabakary and Sidi lack the moral, legal, and political legitimacy to be in this position. Their presence in the National Assembly is a dishonor to that honorable house, and it shall be regarded as such so long as they work within the walls of the Assembly. Fabakary and Sidi shall always be remembered as undesirable citizens who unleashed intolerable trauma on Gambians as they plunged this country into a nerve-wracking political impasse that nearly threw our motherland into flames. It is therefore with utter shock that you would find no Gambians worthy of this high office other than Fabakary Tombong Jatta and Sidi S.K. Njai. Mr. President, be informed that we, the victims of human rights violations of Yahya Jammeh, feel deeply hurt and betrayed. We are deeply concerned that as we await your white paper on the TRRC report, these nominations make us doubt if we will ever get justice. It is obvious that as Speaker, Fabakary will not provide the necessary leadership and support to the implementation of your white paper or the TRRC report itself, simply because Fabakary and Sidi Njai have glaringly showed that their utter disdain for the TRRC and the entire transitional justice process. It is on record that Fabakary has led the APRC since 2016 to actively and vigorously reject, discredit, and ridicule the TRRC and every other effort, institution, or individual, including your former Minister of Justice, Abubakar Tambedu, who seek to bring justice for victims of Yahya Jammeh. How, therefore, could you nominate such a person to lead the main body that ultimately bears the primary responsibility of making laws, approving budgets, and scrutinizing institutions that are responsible for the implementation of the TRRC report? Mr. President, we consider your nomination of these two individuals to be grossly irresponsible and poor leadership that can only further divide Gambians, hence endanger the peace and stability of this country. The norm in the civilized world is that countries that underwent armed conflict or authoritarian rule first unearth the truth about the violations that happened and then ensure accountability leading to reparations, reconciliation, and reforms. It has never been the case that key perpetrators of violation would be rewarded with high political office, even when the truth is not yet fully unearthed. Mr. President, we wish to put it to you that Fabakary Tombong Jatta and Sidi Njie are perpetrators, even if they did not physically torture and kill. They did not have to do that. Rather, they provided the greatest support for the torturers and killers by failing to hold the president and his henchmen accountable, which power they had but decided to willfully neglect. They provided not only cover up for these crimes by their silence, but also legalized and legitimized these crimes with the creation of or amendment of laws such as the Indemnity Act 2001 and the Public Order Act 2009 and others. Hence the role that Fabakary and Sidi Njie played in the massive human rights violations of their regime is far greater than the junglers, who were indeed the actual torturers and killers. What we expect is that Fabakary and Sidi Njie should rather face justice for their negligence of duty, which cost lives, and not to reward them, hence entrenching impunity. As we register our disappointment and disagreement with your decision, we wish to emphasize that we remain committed to the Transitional Justice Program and hereby urge you to ensure that the TRRC report and recommendations are effectively implemented in transparent, inclusive, and efficient manner. We will spare no effort to ensure that these objectives are met. In the service of the nation, I remain signed Sheriff Mohammed Kijara, Chairman, Board of Directors, Victim Center. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sirif. Well spoken and well read. I think all of us are testimony of what we have heard. I mean, these are not new stories. These are not stories. These are things that had happened in this country. You and I know what had happened during the 22 years of Yahya Jammeh. And I also want to re-emphasize the fact that many a times when the Victim Center comes out to clarify issues and talk, people regard us as sidelighting one or two political parties. We are non-political party. We don't support any political party. Yes, individually you may have parties that you support. But here what concerns us is the state, it's the country, it's the Gambia that we see. Fabakary Tombong and Sidi Njie are human beings and are Gambians. We know that. We all interrelate as Gambians. We discuss as Gambians. We don't dislike them, but what we dislike is their attitude, what they have done during the 22 years of Yahya Jammeh. It has caused pain. It has disintegrated family. It has affected people who have worked for so many years in government. So, in essence, what we are saying as an institution and as a platform that tries to advocate for justice and amplify the voices of the Victim Center, of the victims. So we are making it clear and crystal to the head of state and to his supporters that we cannot reverse the decision that he has done, but we are Gambians and we can still put our ideas and our voices across. It's democracy. We have the right to speak, our right to say what we feel. What we felt is that these two people, there are many Gambians that the president could have chosen. But taking these two people is trying to re-traumatize victims. And it has re-traumatized some of our victims because we have seen the problems that it has caused since day one when these two people were nominated to the parliament. So to cut the story short, we are trying to inform Gambians that it's a concern for us, and more reason is because of the TRRC recommendation, because we felt that these two people, since if they are still within the parliament, they can influence the decision change. So that is the reason why we are making our voices heard. So we want to thank each and everyone, and perhaps if anyone wants to add, Philo and others, or a victim who wants to talk, Mr. Bojan, the floor is here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Sorry.
It is a very sad moment for us to come and congregate here. The chairman have said it all. People were disappointed the way and manner the head of state is conducting his affairs. Parliamentarians were rightfully elected, but the cream of the parliament doesn't have any sugar. The creams on top doesn't hold water. These two guys, as stated by my colleagues here, I label them as circumstantial perpetrators. If they are doing their acts behind, we may not be knowing that. But these people came out. When Barrow was elected, Fabakary was the one who ordered or who took the bill to the House for them to implement 90 days emergency period. Those moments, so many people suffered, those who are trying to vacate the Gambia. Moreover, Sidinjai, who was telling the nation over the media that Barrow must not swear in the Gambia. I was very much disappointed when TRRC was set up till the end of it without seeing Adama Barrow on the other side and Sidinjai at the other side. The nation wanted to hear from Sidi. Why should Adama Barrow not swear in the Gambia? I haven't heard that. I used to write it on Facebook. I was disappointed personally. We want to hear from these people. At the same time, why should the president allow to connive with Sidinjai? He told us at one of his gatherings that Fabakary was the one who initiated APRC to come on board. That's their business. But when people elected their parliamentarians, we expect the cream of the parliament to be perfect. Nobody should have a query about it. I'm not blaming the president, I'm blaming the advisors of the president. Who are the guys advising the president? It is very wrong. And what we have observed also, we went on election on the 9th of April. The results came out on the 10th of April and the 11th of April. People were jubilating on the streets, whilst others are mourning their dead. Is this right? If Adama Barrow's son was killed on April 10, we are not going to hold election on those days. I know he will not do that. Why is he doing it now? Is he trying to provoke us? This is serious. I blame the advisors. I better stop up here. Kijera and my colleagues have said it all. Even if you check on Solo Sanders' death, the date of his death, it coincides with government's occasion. This is very unfair. We are observing them. And I know one day, Adama Barrow must face Sidinjai to tell the nation, for Sidinjai to explain to us why should Adama Barrow not swear in the Gambia. The nation wanted to know. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bojang.
Thank you.
We have Honorable.
First of all, I want to express my gratitude to this institution for creating this opportunity to inform the Gambians what has really happened. It is a very relevant decision to face the nation and express our disgust for what has happened as far as the appointment of Fatou Jata and others are concerned. I happen to be one of the victims of the Jammeh. In fact, in 1997, I was nominated while I was detained in the prison. But I was a detainee and not a convict, so I was nominated as a candidate. And I contested the election in prison and won while I was in prison. So I also was a parliamentarian. I happened to be the minority leader, and Fabakary was the majority leader for Jammeh. So it is very surprising for President Alan Barrow to take this decision to appoint such a person who is to answer so many questions as these human rights violations are concerned. But as the saying goes, birds of the same feather flock together. It is a very wrong decision to appoint a man like Fatou Jata and the sitting judge to this position. So it is very unfortunate, and it goes very badly for this country. So I want to thank the chairman of the Victim Center to create this opportunity so that we can talk to the Gambian people about this very unfortunate situation. The direction that the government has taken, there should be an action to reverse this decision. So I thank this institution for creating this opportunity so that the Gambians and the world as a whole can be told what really has happened.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I think you've said it all. We have a victim, that's the wife of the late Solo Sunday. He will be the last person to speak. He will talk in Mandinka because that's language he can speak in.
Assalamu alaikum. Mo be kontona. Tona kontona. ñu ko men be keri president Adama Barrow ay ñu ko men kate baytan la dunia be la ko ni ko tan to le disappointment baleti akata ni jakal tu baleti akata ni dorote ko katan tel ngamera ko ata yanta kala moleti min banko kam min yantan to nya fitala kan tala victim ya bin be kala victim muti amma te kumpa fenna ma kumpa ci ayin bi ngol jele ayin na mol je te mungu doldo mungu solleti ndi ke fata yen ke fa yen be dingol ben tolle bulu nde mi wol be do man ndi ngamera ko mi expect ni Adama Barrow yen to nya fita kan landi dula kan sindi dula to kan landi dula to nya bo be tar la damento bari kan kumbondi kote fon hakilo fon be nimi salam na mol la sayala mo ni ran bi Babakar Tombon Jata anin Sidi Njai ñolu yame ni jalon singo be foran ko be kuma le fonol tan to ko sono le ba ni atara wol min yalo ko wolle oda di pour yen to la mol fa ten tan la mol bouté ten tan la mol lanjuru fol be sino le ko take kana woto nya fo ba Adama Barrow fon ni atara no mbani ni kala ko kilina ni atara no e Fatou bale fanu wara ya dinke wo min be America karawole wole fanu wara la dindi mesangol mi babule wala fanu wara bare muso ngay korda sammi jena kaw nyanda fanto mi yalla ka mambo ku kal magambe la pole yakono kanto tuja ni atare wala fanu fo bidum atebe mala tenne ba lafta ni kala wala bari nak hadama diwo ni be bi ko no sama sa ku yemira kunun kala na wotambi kala bari se bi ni sama ni be bi ko no sama sa bari be ni lafta ni la ko dunia e wuli justice tamani Adama Barrow tema Sidi Njai ñol mi ngaye landi ñin dulata min yalan ko to la justice tamandi la katu mamira kotake kon to la wata do be bayla mi Sidi Njai ñol be ñin dulata katu wolle ku ken to la wolte te fon ke fon soronna e fon to nya fule faye woto ngamin dani wolam ko be min dana dunia bula ni sembe tiol bulu ni to nya tiol bulu wolam ko e Sidi Njai ñol bondi ñin dulata kata ay ñinu min Sindi je ay be bondi je ye mol Sindi je mi yan ko be justice tamandi la fonyama Adama Barrow bala fa hani bi Adama Barrow ni solo le katano Adama Barrow ni solo le ku jamaate Adama Barrow ni solo le political party kili bi solo fa ni bi tema solo be Death House Adama Barrow tamila Death House la nyabe si nga nyabe tilni Death House la ame mirako ata fana nyanta falale ame mirako solo be dama be tala jeli ame mira solo dimbayal la ndegan sen wutu jande tara Adama Barrow ya ka tanda ko kan problème o be fay Adama Barrow ko fenta bula ben tema ko la minna
Allahu
antela ngani fo adun akoy tamale adun mantara fania fola na tara min fa manke toñati Adama Barrow nga dani ayen su court ngatan dan ko ala nsedo fele sidin su kay dahaba ne wol tata je woto na tara en tet wo bata kono hani sa min dingol be sofala mbe wo bata kono fo ala ni mo kendol woto mimun na justice na nyanto ay wota ay wodinna nsen dingol sambano wa mere wole fi sante ni nyon bi Adama Barrow ñol be kordal tale be talan na minister tema min yalan ko man batalo e man tara batari mol bi jana min yalan ko ya jamela government wol fa keñol fata jele wol fa ñol fata jele wol dingol tuta jele ibe luwa so la hani say muna tinna ma wala nyantol timmandi fo kata hani bi katan tol la nyanto busin na hani say wala ko kanyin Sidi Njai ni Babakar Tombon Jata ko wol sindi wo noto wala ko yarota busota ko take ye bute to mal minuto ye fa wala wote katun te ko kilin nsa ko faliye ko lungo men na ñu appoint birin daddi ni ala mamma ko den golum fata ko ngami fil hani sayen wala ben dala ka sile mbalo ka jara kijo kam fara be da men sunte wato le ngakala mutabari ngam mo ndo fulale bi sunte yo ko ngam fojo mando morke ko take anim bite mangalla nabe la nalale ne wulitan nabe wullale fodu wala nyanta kala bam dunya mo fo le nyanta kala woto Sidi Njai ñol kata ñu ay be jindi dal surata wala ko pare justice tama ntema min nyanta kala woye wasala.
Thank you very much, madam. We've all had unfortunate stories. I mean, these are the similar stories that would emerge from all the victims, if you ask me, because I can tell you that all wounds have been reopened. People have been re-traumatized when they heard the news that Sidi Njai and Babakar Tombon Jata have been selected or nominated as National Assembly members, because these are key positions. Now, if you look at the hierarchy in the executive going down to the legislative. Fabakary Tombong falls that position. So anything can happen. If anything happens, Fabakary can bounce back. So these are the concerns of Gambians and concerns of victims and concerns of CSOs. And that is why we will still question, like the honorable member mentioned, the questions should be asked to Fabakary Tombong and Sidi Njai. There are many questions for them to answer. So I think I want to call on Tilo to give a solidarity statement on behalf of CSOs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Yusuf Taylor, all the media here, and we've heard from the victims. I'm speaking on behalf of my civil society organization, Team Gomsa Bopa. I'm also speaking as a concerned citizen and on my own conscience as well. As a young person, I think we young people are part of this country, and we also have a say in what happens in this country. It is our future that is being built right now. We know what past we have had for 22 years, and we know what future we deserve as young people. And if we don't have a say in that, it will not be a future that our children will also be proud of. We want to send us a message to the government, to the executive in particular. Nominations have a special purpose. Nominations serve a special purpose in the National Assembly. It is not meant for entrenchment. It is not meant for the president to entrench himself. It's meant to provide for the needy people, people who are most maligned in society, victims, persons with disability, young people like myself. Skill sets that are missing in the National Assembly that will serve this country. That is what that is what the nominated members are for. Mr. President, we as concerned citizens, when we read your statement shortly after the parliamentary elections, we believed you were on a quest to unify this country. And we accepted your speech and your statement. It entered into our hearts. We felt you would do the needful. We felt perhaps your meetings at Senegal had taught you how to engage the opposition, how to reconcile this country, which is what this country needs, Mr. President. And so we urge you. We know you cannot recall these nominated members. We know you also have decisions to make for your cabinet. Consider the victims, consider the young people, consider the less privileged in society. Now we have a National Assembly which doesn't have a space for anybody with a disability. Is this representative of the people, of the Gambian people? Mr. President, you nominated 3 women in 2017, and now you've nominated only 2. So we are certainly in solidarity with the victims. We believe the Gambian people voted for a change. Mr. President, when you promised a new constitution after winning the elections, we believed it. But you have nominated Fabakary Tombong Jatta, who marched to the Ministry of Justice and called the TRRC a rubbish paper, a toilet paper. And what about the Constitution too? Already been stated. Finally, Mr. President, we want to highlight that you have promised before the elections that you will stamp out citizens going out to protest, public assembly. and you have made good on that promise, Mr. President. You cannot. We as civil society condemn that. The space for citizens to express their concerns must be available. And if you continue to shut down that space, it will not end well. So we as concerned citizens, me myself as a young person, as a representative of a civil society organization, we fully condemn the appointment of Fabakary Tombong Jatta, and we will go further to ask them to resign and step down and do the morally right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fatou. I think this brings us to the end. So in case you have one or two questions that you want to ask, we are ready to clarify them. Any questions from the journalists? Yes.
Good afternoon. Good morning. First, I want to make a comment and also ask a question to the name. Before I do that, I want to commend the Victim Center for organizing such an important issue. Then quickly, I'll go into my comment. The comment is like this. I think the issue of justice, the issue of human rights and democracy. Oh, sorry. Let me just say the issue of justice must not be partisan, or it shouldn't be politicized. Looking and listening to the various victims' family members, I'm left wondering, why should this happen with Gambia? We all knew what happened, and still some people are in denial. Some are making the victims' issue like a political football. I think this is too serious. It's about justice. It's about trying to know what happened. We all knew the injustice, the various loads of injustice that happened in this country from, let's say, 1994 to date. So, like I said, I commend the Victim Center for the important role they are playing. Because for far too long, victims' families have been tortured psychologically. Because if you kill somebody's breadwinner, you kill somebody's husband, you kill somebody's dad, and you think you can go and sleep, with a free, or with what can I say? You go and sleep. I think it's high time, like I said, the issue of victims is devoid or is detached from partisan politics. Finally, the question I want to ask is, where do we go from here? The Victims Center. I heard Mr. Kijera reading out the mail to President Barrow, and I'm not convinced that Barrow will do anything. He will never reverse his decision. You can quote me, or you can check in history. So many things inconsistent. So for me, I think the whole issue appointing Fabakary Tombong Jatta and Sidi, it's a mockery of justice. It's a mockery of our democracy. So unless we clarify this, it's really sad. So the question is, where do we go from here? With your protest note, I think maybe the president has read your protest note or whatever. But action, because we need action. We cannot just be making political statements with the issue of victims. TRRC, we all knew, did at least a bit in trying to discover what happened. Now the truth is known, but some people are afraid to make sure justice takes its course. Thank you so much. My name is Momodu Lamin Jaite. I represent Pan-African News Agency, Pana Press. We are headquartered in Dakar, and it's a communication wing of the former OAU, now AU. So I work for Pana Press. I represent them here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaite. Yes. Thank you for that contribution. Well, when you want to take action, you start from one step, then the other. today we have written to the President to express our concern, our disappointment with regards to the nomination of both Fabakary Tombong-Jatta and Sidi Njie as Speaker and Deputy respectively. There will be other actions that will follow. We will organize a peaceful march to the National Assembly to demand the resignation of both Sidi Njie and Fabakary Tombong-Jatta. And also we will be engaging the National Assembly members. We will engage them to lobby their support. They can also do what their constitutional, the powers give them. I'm sure there are provisions, that can dislodge these two, people, from their position. So we will continue the engagement with the National Assembly, the members. We will work towards organizing a peaceful march to demand the resignation of both Fabakary Tombong-Jatta and Sidi Njie. With regards to the victims, you have diverse victims that were affected during the Jammeh era, victims from different forms of violations, from various political groups. It just happens that what transpired during the 2016 elections, the protests led by Mr. Solo Sandeng and his compatriots, that set the tone, for the change that we have in 2016. It brought together all political parties. A sea change, in our political sensibility that ushered, to a new democratic dispensation. So you have diverse victims that were affected during the Jammeh era. We at the Victim Center give opportunity to each and every victim to be heard, and we take care of all of them, irrespective of which political grouping they are from. So we cover the various thematic areas of human rights violations, from enforced disappearances to extrajudicial killing, gender and sexual-based violence, the witchcraft victims, Yahya Jammeh's unlawful presidential treatment program, the victims that were affected. We have diverse victims, that are part of the Victims Center. So it is not based on party political affiliation. We are a politic. We don't support any political party. So I think that is clear. But rest assured that we will take further actions to engage the authorities constructively to see how we can, come out from this unfortunate situation. Thank you.
So is there any date that is set for this protest?
We are doing further consultation. This is not just about the Victim Center. We are going to collaborate with other CSOs and other victims-led organizations, to come together as a united front, to confront the menace to our current situation. When the date is confirmed, we will communicate to the media and the general public.
Thank you.
Any other question?
No.
You have copies of the speech?
Well, the speech is sent to all the media groups. If at all you don't receive one, you can give us your email account. Then we will send you. We forward the speech to you.
Okay, we want to take this opportunity to thank you all very much for coming. Sorry.
My name is Awa Ejan, Program Associate, Women Association for Victims Empowerment. We are thanking all of you for this initiative, and I believe we will join you in ensuring that CDA Jata and Father Cariton Jata that we are recently elected CD Yangala, that we are recently elected as Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. We are working with victims and we know what victims are facing. In fact, the lady already highlighted that it will be difficult for them to come out. Because if you are not secure, how will you be able to come out and talk to the public? And how will they receive reparations? So this is really on fault, and we must stand in solidarity to avoid this. Even though President wants to stick to the fact that he has the right to appoint Speaker and Deputy Speaker, morally ground, we are saying no to this because victims are affected and victims are not satisfied with this. Secondly, I just want to make a request if we can have a copy of the letter that you sent to the President. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That is says from the WIF. I mean, we have a very strong collaborative the mechanism in place with the other victims-led organizations. We work in partnership, we work closely because we have a single goal, a unique goal, that is to achieve justice for all the victims. So we are all in this thing together. The speech will be made available as soon as possible when we end this event. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you so much.
Yes, any other question?
Milan Berkman from AFP and also RFI. Like based on what happened at the National Assembly, these nominations, what are the chances today for you that we finally get these people in court in the Gambia some day in the future?
Well, I think we should come together as Gambians to have a united voice. We should speak one voice as Gambians. The nomination of both Fabakary and Siri, it does not just affect the victims. It's the entire Gambia. Morally, it is wrong. These people, have been aiding and abetting, to the joining dictatorship of Yahya Jammeh. Whatever happens during Jammeh's era affected every single Gambian. So we are going to mobilize support from the four corners of this country, from across all regions of this country, to come together as a unified force, to confront the government, not just the nomination of Fabakary. There are other issues. We need a new constitution. We need a new constitution. The 1997 constitution is not a progressive one. It is not good for our jurisprudence. You have so many bad laws. It does not cater for the women of this country. It does not cater for the youth of this country. Youth constitute 65% of the majority of this population. So the current constitution does not cater for that, and the women group as well. So we will continue to fight and engage the government constructively. We will engage as part of our engagement. We will engage the current membership of the National Assembly to see how we can work together to change the status quo, as we find ourselves in. So, it is based on consultation, and constructive engagement.
So you're still optimistic for justice to be done after all?
We are optimistic that justice will be served at the end of the day. Even President Adama Barrow is not willing to prosecute Yahya Jammeh. The international world is ready to prosecute Yahya Jammeh. ICC is ready to prosecute Yahya Jammeh. Today, in Germany, by law, a jungler, a former jungler, is being prosecuted. He will face justice in a foreign land. If a foreign government can take responsibility and prosecute those that bear the greatest responsibility in atrocity crimes that were committed during the Jammeh era, I see no reason why the government of Adama Barrow cannot pursue all these criminals that are at large and bring them to face justice and bring them to face their victims. If Barrow is not ready to do that, we have an international coalition that is behind the victims, that will support the victims, that will make every effort to make sure that justice is served.
Thank you very much. I think this brings us to the end. Yes. Thank you very much. We want to thank you very much for coming.